Hello everyone. In this video, we're going to be comparing two numbers. We have 11 to the power square root of 2 and 37, and we're going to find out which number is larger. This is a homemade comparison problem, and if you know the idea behind these, then you can easily come up with these kinds of problems. So let's go ahead and take a look at a couple things first. First, I noticed that square root of 2 is about 1.4 something, right? 1.41. So I just noticed that this is actually less than 1.4, which can be written as, actually I wrote it wrong. It should be greater than. This number is greater than 1.4, which can be written as 7 over 5. So basically, we can safely say that square root of 2 is greater than 7 over 5. Great. Let's see if we can use this idea. How can I use this idea? Well, if square root of 2 is greater than 7 over 5, then I can hopefully, since I have a square root of 2 here in the exponent, I can hopefully take a look at 11 to the power 7 over 5 and then compare it to 37. So let's see if we can do that. So since square root of 2 is greater than 7 over 5, how can I use this information, right? So here's what I need to look at. I need to be able to compare this to 11 to the power 7 over 5. But then eventually, I need to compare this to 37, which means I need to raise both sides to the 5th power and compare 11 to the 7th and 37 to the 5th. And obviously, those are very large numbers, but let me give you the values for them. So the numerical value for 11 to the 7th power is 19,487,171. And 37 to the 5th power is 69,343,957. Awesome. So they're both in the 10 millions. So if you put the commas here, it's going to be a little easier to read these numbers. One of them is like 16 million. The other one is like 69 million. Okay. Now, how do we use this information? Well, this tells us that 11 to the 7th power is less than 37 to the 5th power. Make sense? And how could you find this information? Just look at the powers. I made that Excel chart, like a spreadsheet actually, a large spreadsheet with prime numbers and their powers, and I kind of compare them. This is how I actually come up with these problems. Maybe I can share that chart with you one day. So now, anyways, this is my comparison between these two numbers. And why is this significant? Because I'm going to be comparing this with 11 to the power square root of 2. So I kind of have to insert this somewhere. But how does that work? Well, here's the thing. I have 11 to the 7 is less than 37 to the 5th. So if you raise both sides to the power 1/5, then you're going to get the following, right? You're going to get 11 to the power 7 over 5 is less than 37. Awesome. Now I want to compare 11 to the power root 2 and 37, so wouldn't that be nice? And I think it will be, right? If 11 to the power root 2 is less than this, so that we could eventually show that, oh, okay, it's less than 37. Because by a chain of inequalities or using the transitive property, it would follow immediately. But the problem is this is not true. False. Why? Because square root of 2 is not less than 7 over 5. It's actually greater than 7 over 5. So we kind of have something like this. 11 to the power root 2 is greater than 11 to the power 7 over 5. And 11 to the power 7 over 5 is less than 37. Make sense? Or in other words, if you write it the other way around, you can kind of write it like this too. You can say, hey, we have 37 being greater than 11 to the power 7 over 5. So there are two numbers that are greater than the same number, but we do not know which one is greater. Make sense? Okay. So in other words, this approach is not helpful. Why did I show you that? Why did I show you something that doesn't work? Because sometimes you do need to see methods that don't work. It's not always success. There's a lot of failures before you hit success. Okay? Anyways, let's go ahead and take a look at a method that has been successful. So again, we're comparing 11 to the power root 2 and 37. And we're trying to find out which number is greater. So here's what we're going to look instead. We have 11 to the 3rd power, which is 1331. You should probably know that rule. That's very special. And 37 squared, which is 1369. Now, why am I looking at these powers? Because these numbers are so close. Look at that. They're super duper close, and they come from my chart. I already know that those numbers are pretty close. Okay, great. So how do I use this information to transition to what I need? Let's find out. So this tells us 11 to the third power is less than 37 squared. Do you agree? I hope you do. Now we're going to raise both sides to the power 1/2 because our goal is to get rid of the 2 here. And then the 2 is going to cancel out, and we're going to end up with 11 to the power 3/2 is less than 37. Awesome. Remember, I'm trying to compare 11 to the power root 2 and 37. So now I need to compare 11 to the power root 2 and 11 to the power 3/2. In other words, I need to compare 3/2 and root 2. You already know the answer, but let's just go ahead and go through the process to make it more rigorous. Okay, 8 is less than 9, right? I mean, obviously. From here, square root of 8 is going to be square root of less than 9. It's going to be less than that. And now, if you square root 8, you're going to get 2 root 2 because it's 4 times 2 under the radical is going to be less than 3. Awesome. What can I do with this? Divide both sides by 2. And yes, you got it. Root 2 is going to be less than 3/2. Oh, come on. You didn't know that? Well, root 2 is about 1.4. So obviously, it's going to be less than 3/2. But we just had to show it, right? I mean, we had to prove it somehow. Okay, interesting. How do I use this information? Here's how I can use it. I have these numbers, and now I got to do 11 to the power something. So let's go ahead and do the following. I have 11 here and 11 here. If I put these powers, 11 to the power root 2 and 11 to the power 3/2, then 11 to the power root 2 is going to be less than 11 to the power 3/2 because that's what we get from here. Okay, makes sense? I hope it does. We also know that 11 to the power 3/2 is less than 37. How do you put those together? Like this. 11 to the power root 2 is less than 11 to the power 3/2, which is less than 37. Therefore, we got our result. Yay. 11 to the power root 2 is less than 37. As you know, the first method did not give us anywhere. Well, I don't know if you want to call it the first method, but the very first approach that we talked about did not help because they didn't transition. But here, by using the transitive property, we get this result nicely. So as a conclusion, 37 is greater than 11 to the power root 2. In other words, 37 is the larger number. All right, let's go ahead and check the numerical value, and we're just going to finish up. So the numerical values are as follows. 11 to the power root 2 is 29.69 something. It's about 30. Obviously, this is less than 37. And this brings us to the end of this video. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. I'll see you next time with another video. Until then, be safe, take care, and bye-bye.